You're listening to the Clean Comedy Podcast with your host, James Creviston.
Hey, everybody, it's James. Welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast. And today we have a great friend of mine, someone who we all love, who is going to be doing a brand new special in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at the Steel Stacks called Glen Tickle Against the World Crime League. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to let Glenn explain it because I'm not going to do it because I won't do it justice. Even though we are similar fans, I guarantee you he's a bigger fan of it than I am. But still, let's jump into it. Glenn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back, friend.
Always.
It is great to be here. There was a very loud, I think a plane or a helicopter just went overhead. I hope that didn't pick up.
I didn't hear anything, and I have my earphones in, so I should be able to hear anything you hear or
It
say.
should shed a little bit, which is the only reason I would normally not address it, but there was actual vibration in the booth, so I thought.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, and I decided to call my comedy special Glen Tickle Against the World Crime League. I just thought, oh, this will be a fun little joke for me. No one's gonna push back on this. I've gotten so many questions. I mean, I've gotten one question kind of over and over again, which is, why did you call it this? And the answer is, and I know I've never brought it up ever on social media or anywhere else, but my favorite movie is the 1984 classic, The Adventures of Buckaroo Bonzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Now, in the credits for that movie, it says, watch for Buckaroo Bonzai's next adventure, Buckaroo Bonzai Against the World Crime League. But since I'm the only person who loves that movie, they never made another one. They didn't make the second movie. They have since put it out as a book, and I wish they didn't do that because, oh boy, did I not enjoy reading that. But I powered through. I got to the end.
Would it have been better as like a comic book, you think?
No, it would have been better if they buried it in a well. I love the movie, but I don't know. I have the novelization of the movie, which was written by Earl MacRouch, who did the movie. He also wrote it as a book, so it's not like it was a weird adaptation. It's the same guy putting out both, and it's just he's got a pretty dry prose style, I would say. But I didn't like the follow up as much as I like Eighth Dimension. But when I did my last special, Good Grief, I put in the credits for that. I'm like, oh, it'll be funny if in the credits I put watch for Glen Tickle's next adventure, Glen Tickle Against the World Crime League, which is a joke no one saw. Like, no one noticed that in the credits and thought, oh, I can't wait for Glen Tickle Against the World Crime League to drop. But now that I'm doing another special, it's like, well, yeah, I got to call it that. I said I was going to. So that's what I'm doing. And no one caught it in the credits or knows what it is a reference to.
Or
so I'm explaining it a lot, particularly to my mom. She asks me every time I talk to her, is it going to be like, is it superhero stuff? Is it going to be stuff I'm going to understand? I'm like, it's not as special all about Buckaroo Bonzai as much as I would love to do one. It is just
awesome.
It is just regular stand-up.
Wait, do you have a Buckaroo Bonzai bit in this, like to kind of give homage?
I kind of do an explanation at some point because I've had so many people ask me about it, where I feel like if I don't address it, it's just going to be like a weird thing that people won't understand. So I might work it in there somewhere. It is not currently in the set. We'll see how it goes in a couple weeks when I record it.
All right.
We bring up Jurassic Park a couple of times, but that's just that also happens when you talk to me in a conversation.
Right. That's true. That's true. I think is this the most popular Peter Weller movie there is? Is that like the most popular one? Is Buckaroo Bonzai, or is something else that I can't remember?
RoboCop.
RoboCop. You're right. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
This isn't even the most popular W.D. Richter movie, and he directed it, and he only directed a movie that even I can't remember the name of. But he wrote Big Trouble in Little China, so I think that would be his most well-known work.
That movie's awesome. I love that movie.
It's one of those things where, like, I tell people that I love Buckaroo Bonzai, and they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, it's this movie from 1984. And then you give people the cast list, and they're like, how have I not heard of this movie? How is there a movie with John Lithgow, Peter Weller, Jeff Goldblum, Christopher Lloyd,
yeah,
Ellen Barkin? It is like wall to wall mid '80s stars. And
Yakov Smirnoff is in that movie too, isn't it? Is that like one of the big things? Like Yakov Smirnoff is in the movie. Like I think I remember that. That's
a big thing, but he's in there.
Right, but I mean, like, I think as a kid, I didn't know who he was until that movie, and then I was like, oh, it's because I thought the name was funny, like in the credits at the end. I was like, oh, Yakov Smirnoff, that's funny. And then someone told me, like, oh, he's a comedian, and I was like, wait, what? And so that was
his last name is Smirnoff in the movie too.
Is he? Yeah,
if I maybe. So they address him at one point. I forget his title, but he's like Ambassador Smirnoff or something.
That's it. It's funny. I have to go back and watch that movie. Where can you watch that movie? Can you even watch that movie anywhere?
You can. It's weird. It cycles on and off of the different streaming services, like on a month-to-month basis. So it is usually available to stream, but it changes where you can stream it. There's a great site, justwatch.com, where you type in what you want to watch and it tells you what streaming services it's available on. Highly recommend bookmarking that. I get a lot of use out of it.
Wheretowatch.com.
Just Watch.
Oh, Just Watch. Okay, justwatch.com.
Where to Watch might be one. I don't know. But
probably.
Just Watch is super helpful.
I like. Oh, that's great. Okay, yeah, I pulled it up. That's awesome. That it's one of those movies where if you've seen it, you're like, okay, that's a cool movie. I don't know very many people that are as huge fans apparently as you are. Like, do you own a lot of Buckaroo Bonzai merchandise and stuff?
There's not a ton available. I have. I think it fell off the wall. Yeah, there it is. I have in my the big white empty space. Usually, this poster for one of the comic book releases that my friend Ken Plume sent me years ago. It is in the sound booth in my shed where I do virtual shows because my children are afraid of it, so I had to sequester it in here. My wife did get me the jet car license plate from the movie, not like the actual one. I'm sure it's just a
knockoff.
Yeah. We lost it that same day. Like, I opened it Christmas morning, was delighted, and we have no idea where it ended up. So wow. I keep meaning to order another one because that would look nice behind me here in the booth. This is Rocket in an old style New Jersey license plate.
Now, what is it about the movie that made you fall in love with it or like it so much that you were willing to name a special? What?
About my love of this movie.
Well, because it ties into what your special is. I mean, there is obviously a love there that made you be willing to dedicate or at least make that joke and then take it so seriously that you're gonna name your new special after.
Absolutely. The other people that I know who enjoy the movie, like I mentioned, my friend Ken Plume really likes it. But I think a lot of other people who really like it because they saw it when they were younger and have like fond memories. I didn't see it until like 4 years ago. And I watched it in the middle of the night. My newborn baby would not sleep. And I was up anyway. So it's like, oh, let me find something to watch. I had just seen Ready Player One, which isn't good, but he puts on Buckaroo Bonzai's suit at one point.
Yep.
And I was like, that's a cool suit. I've heard of the movie, but I'd never seen it. And I was up in the middle of the night scrolling through. I think it was on Amazon Prime at the time. And I saw it. I'm like, oh, that's that movie. All right, I'll watch that. And the beginning of it's really confusing. I thought Jeff Goldblum was Buckaroo Bonzai because you see the poster and he's the one dressed as a cowboy. So you think, well, that's obviously him. But I think it's like 15 minutes in, I decided that it was my favorite movie of all time. So right after Buckaroo performs brain surgery, then drives a car through a mountain, he shows up in New Jersey to play a concert with his band, the Hong Kong Cavaliers. And in the middle of the concert, Buckaroo like shuts it down. He's like, stop. Hey guys, no more music. Is someone not having a good time? I'm like, this is my favorite movie. That's the most relatable thing I've ever seen on film. Which I'm sure you know, as a comic, like you could be killing. Everyone at the show is having a great time. There's one person up front mad dogging you the whole time, clearly not into it. That's the only person you're focused on.
Yep. I had that like two weeks ago. Actually, I had that at a show.
Might not necessarily be your dead wife's secret twin sister like she is in the movie, but she might be. I don't know. And it's immediately I was like, this is incredible. And then it was like genuinely the only thing I wanted to watch for a while, because the pandemic was a weird time for everybody. Where it's like, well, I don't. There wasn't a lot of new TV or movies coming out, so it's like, I guess I'm watching it again. Like, I just got really into just rewatching it over and over again. And every time I do it, I think like I'm gonna not enjoy it as much. Never happened. I like it every time. Like I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, but every time I watch it, there's like I find a new little thing that kind of bugs me.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, all right, I don't need to keep rewatching this movie. I'm just gonna know that I like it, and we'll leave it at that.
I don't know if there's I don't know if there's an action or sci-fi movie that I could watch as much. I watch the opening sequence of Bad Boys quite often, just the opening sequence. Do you remember the opening sequence of Bad Boys?
I've seen it, but I don't.
So they're like driving, and it's Will Smith driving his Porsche, and Martin Lawrence like, what's that?
Being Bad Boys would be my guess.
Yeah, it's dope. No. But like they're like driving, and like Martin Lawrence is eating a burger and fries in his Porsche, and then Will Smith gets mad, and then they pull over so Martin Lawrence can get the fries out of there that dropped and stuff, and then they get like they're about to get carjacked, and then they have this whole like scene with the carjackers and stuff, and it's really funny. It's like one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Yeah, I kind of remember that now that you described it.
Yeah, but it's the only I only watched that one sequence as far as like I don't watch the whole movie because I'm like, it's okay after that. The end sequence is great too, but the opening sequence is the best.
I mean, Buckaroo Bonzai is like so comforting to me now that I will frequently just put it on. Like I'll get back to a hotel after a show somewhere, and I'll just like put it on, and I'll be asleep by the time the concert starts. Like I'll fall asleep during the jet car sequence pretty quick, but it's just like I've seen it so many times. It's genuinely like comforting to just have on. And I like it. I like it a lot. It's one of those things too, where I know people have watched this movie after hearing me talk about it, and then they're like, "I didn't like it." That's fine too. It is a mess of a movie. It's just one that I happen to love dearly.
Everybody has a movie that they like that other people go, "No, I don't like that movie," or whatever.
I like that I know other people don't, where I will like defend. I used to work at a Blockbuster Video, and I would make it my mission on busy nights to make someone rent Magnolia, because it's a movie I genuinely really like, but it was funny to me because so many people would bring it back like within an hour. Like they didn't shit. They get through Tom Cruise's speech at the beginning and they're like, no, and they just bring it back. And I'm old enough that I was renting like the 2 VHS version of Magnolia to people. And they're like, they're never making it to that second tape. They just walk it back in and switched it out for something else.
I mean, I don't blame them. I didn't really love that movie. I used to rent the same like 2 to 3 movies on Friday nights when I was in high school, and it was Clerks was one of them always. I usually Can't Hardly Wait was one of them, and then just I mean, it would vary from time to time, but it might be Mallrats on top of that, or Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs is one of the other 3. Yeah.
I also got Clerks. Clerks is the reason I went to school for film in college.
Yeah.
Because it was a chubby kid from Jersey, and I was like, oh, we can just do this. Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this to Kevin Smith's face, and I feel like when I say it, it makes it sound like I'm kind of dumping on him a little bit. But like, I grew up loving movies. Like I love Jurassic Park and Star Wars, and I would watch those as a kid. And at no point did I think like, I want to make a movie like Star Wars. I want to make Jurassic Park. But then you watch Clerks, and it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely. I've got 4 friends and a place to do a movie. Absolutely.
I have that he's like one of the few people that I've never been able to meet that I want to meet is Kevin Smith, because I like he absolutely, I love his stuff. Like he's me. Like he's who I should have been. Right?
He's out there.
Nerdy. Yeah.
He ping pongs between where you are and where I am quite a bit. Like,
yeah,
he's got a movie theater here in Jersey now.
I know. I wish he would do that out here. That'd be awesome. I would go all the time. I do want to go.
Podcast theater for a while there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So how long between how long is it taking you to prepare the material for this special that you're about to record? Like, how long has this material been marinating? How long have you been working on it to get there? Because you just did Good Grief, you had Dry Bar, you did Glen Tickle, like you've done all these things. So like, and not in like a long amount of time. Like they're pretty compressed.
I did. It's weird because right before the pandemic hit, the biggest problem in my life was that I was filming 2 comedy specials too close together. And I was like, oh man, I'm really going to split the audience for these. Thankfully, one of them was Dry Bar and they waited a year and a half to put it out. So it really wasn't a problem at all. But I filmed them like 2 weeks apart. But that was December 2019, and then January 2020.
Yeah.
And pandemic, so I didn't do a whole lot for a while. The Dry Bar came out, I think, July 2021. So I've not really released anything since there. Like I helped a couple people produce albums and things that were recorded before everything shut down, and they just needed help like releasing them.
Right.
It's been a minute, so it has been. Yeah, it'll be about 2 years between
Okay.
release of the Dry Bar special and recording this one. It'll probably be out around the same time. I don't have like a release.
And then, so I'm assuming you're like me, you wrote over the pandemic, you worked on stuff over the pandemic, even though you couldn't take it to stage, you worked on it and played with it and stuff.
Still doing a ton of virtual shows and stuff.
Right.
During the pandemic. So,
but were you doing new material during those virtual shows?
Some,
Right.
not a ton, because a lot of it was corporate, and it's hard to work out new bits at a corporate show because they're usually bad. Like they're usually not good shows because it's not set up to be a good comedy show. It's set up to be a seminar about something else, and then you're kind of tacked on at the end to make the whole thing a little more palatable. So, I mean, I keep doing them. I've had really fun corporate shows. It is just they're not set up for success, I will say. So if you're in there kind of just fighting to get them to even pay attention, they've been sitting in a hotel conference room all day. You're the last thing before they can go to the bar. They don't really want to be there anymore. And you're like, hey, you want to hear a kind of half-formed idea I thought was pretty funny on the drive over here? Like you really have to just be coming with your best material to hope for even a little bit of a good show. Virtual shows and stuff, again, it's hard to work out because there's a weird delay. They're also kind of a weird bit. I have a bit about doing virtual shows now from having done so many. And doing that, like I do jokes. I'm in a shed right now in my yard, which this is where I do shows from, which is ridiculous. If you told me in 2019 I was going to have a comedy shed in my backyard, like that sounds stupid. And yet here I am. So, but doing that joke on a Zoom show, you're like, oh, isn't it stupid and weird that I'm in a shed right now actively while you're watching me? Like it's less funny because you're kind of in it in the moment. But now that I'm going back out in the world, I was like, oh, it's nice to be in a room with an audience because normally I do this from a shed. And then everyone can laugh at it because you're like removed. I've emerged from the shed. I've gone out into the world, and people feel less bad for me than when I'm doing it in real time.
That's true. Now, is there a reason you painted the microphone red? We didn't really fully address that.
I mean, it's Buckaroo Bonzai. It's the reason.
I just wanted. I want to make sure.
The scene where they're doing the concert, the microphone and mic cable are red.
Yeah.
So as I'm planning, I've got the set more or less locked. For like what material will be included in the special. It is, about 3 weeks away. So I am now in the part of planning for it where it's like, how do I want it to look? Like I'm thinking about where cameras are going to go, that kind of stuff. And part of that is how many visual references to Buckaroo Bonzai can I make in this comedy special without it being distracting?
Okay, so are you gonna wear a pink and blue tie? Is there gonna be one?
No, I am trying to track down the blazer he has.
Okay.
which is like a black and blue kind of like a tight check pattern that I'm having a hard time replicating. I have another one. He's got like a Glen plaid suit on for most of the movie. I have a hoodie made of Glen plaid suit material. That's my backup if I can't find this other one. But I made a T-shirt with a stylized print of the oscillation overthruster, which is kind of like MacGuffin from the movie. It's the thing he makes to travel through dimensions. Um, and the plan is that T-shirt with a black and blue check blazer over it, if I can find one.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the red microphone. Then there's stuff like it's that scene takes place in New Jersey. Most of the movie does. And my first thought when I had a date, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna get like a big empty room that we can make look like Artie's Artery, the club that they play in the movie. And like, that's stupid. Don't do that. That's too much. Especially because like I'm producing this myself. Like if I had somebody else's money to recreate a scene from Buckaroo Bonzai, yeah, I would absolutely do it. But the camera kind of follows him up to the stage, so that's my plan for the walk-on bit, is to try to make it look a little bit like that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna hide a watermelon somewhere in this.
So with this new material, because so I, as everyone who was watching or listening knows, I really want to do dry bar, but I'm being more precious with material of
You
saying
insanely precious with your material.
I know.
Trigger, bud.
I know. So how did you? That's what I'm saying. Like, how did you decide? Like, okay, this is the material I'm definitely going to do for it, because I keep like removing stuff, adding stuff, removing stuff, adding stuff. Like,
see, well, it's because we work differently. I think that's what it is. So when I started going out and doing shows again, I did feel like I haven't written a joke in 3 years, but I got nothing. And then I realized, well, that's not exactly true. Like I have some bits that I was sort of working out before the pandemic hit. I didn't record them anywhere. So I'm like, I can revisit that and see if anything works better now. The bit about the shed, I have some stories about weird shows that I did during the pandemic. So, and then when I started doing shows again, I tend to develop material on stage more than like sitting down with a notebook. So when I started doing more shows, I got more material out of it. And then it's like, all right, well, I have about an hour of material. So I'll just set a date, and then I will have to figure out what the hour is going to be. Because it's the only way I can like trick my brain into getting things done is like, you need a deadline, which is hard to generate for yourself sometimes. But if you call a venue and you're like, hey, when can I come shoot a special? And they tell you that you can do it on your anniversary, and then you have to make sure your wife's not going to be mad at you. And then, so that's April 22nd, baby.
and
It was the only day they had before like the winter. And I was like, I'm not waiting that long. And it actually works out because that whole week I have like a run of shows where I'm headlining. They're not corporate gigs. I can like do new material. It doesn't have to be like super corporate clean. I tend to work clean anyway, but like not having that restriction feels nice. So it's like, all right, great. I'll work out what material I want to include. And I've been basically just dry running it at home. I think we talked about this on another episode I was on, where I will like make a set list and I will just walk laps around my dining room table, just saying it out loud as if there was an audience there, but to get a rough idea of timing. Because with laughs and when you're hyped to be on stage, you're talking a little faster. It's usually like if I do that and it takes an hour to get through the set, I'm good for like 45, 50. And then, but I've done it enough times where it's like, I know how much time I need to adjust for. So I know I have an hour. It might not all the bits might not work, but like timing wise, I have it. So then I try those bits out at shows. It's like, all right, this one doesn't work as well, or I need this one to go before this one. So that's been the last probably month or so, is just locking in the order, because I have an idea of like, well, this is the material I want to do. I want to address that there's been a global pandemic, because I've seen some recent comedy specials that like I feel like they dwell on it too much.
Yeah.
I've seen other ones where they don't address it, and that's weird. So I'm like, I don't know. A lot of the material that I've generated is a direct result of there having been a pandemic. I don't have like a ton of jokes about the actual event, but the fact that I have bits that I've been doing mostly virtual shows from a shed in my yard is because there was a pandemic. I couldn't do them anywhere else. So I had to go out back, and here I am. So there's that. I talk about my kids a lot on stage. So it's like, well, I should check in, give people an update on what they've been up to.
That's true.
There's we've talked about this in the past. I live in New Jersey, but everyone thinks I live in Pennsylvania. So I have a bit about that, and I addressed the fact that the only place I started making a list of like places I might want to do this special, and then I also had a second list of places I knew I wasn't going to do it, and the only place on that list was Steel Stack. But it was because like I did my first album there, and it's also that's why everyone thinks I live in Pennsylvania, because I'm always posting about performing there. So I'm like, well, it's your fault. Like I'm gonna do it here, and then hopefully set the record straight by talking about New Jersey excessively throughout the entire hour, which I bring it up a lot. There have been a couple topics that I'm like, I need to talk about this one less. New Jersey, any opportunity I've had to work in the fact that I live here in the set has gone in. I've cut a lot of references to dead animals because that makes regular people kind of sad. It's not none. There's still some in there, but it's about half, I think, of what I started with. The first time I made the set list, I'm like, a lot of animals die in this set. For me, a vegetarian, like it's weird how many of a whole zoo bought it at one point, but that bit didn't make the cut, sadly. Because the other topic I was trying to cut down on was it was a lot of like telling stories about other shows that I did. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It is just it became like a weird like the third or fourth time I brought it up when I was going through the set, I'm like, this feels excessive to like keep going back to like, oh, one time I did that joke at this show and then this happened. They're funny stories to work, but when you've got so many of them, it feels like it's too much.
Yeah. No, that's true. The reason why the dry bar thing is such a big deal to me, or why it's so hard, is because now you have to send the material you're going to do to them before. So you have to approve everything. So I'm in LA. I'm doing 5, 10, 15-minute sets. I'm not doing 25, 30-minute sets because that's not what happens here until you have TV credits or whatever and stuff. So I'm having to cobble together all that stuff. So I have to make sure that I know everything works before I put together a video and send it to them or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking about submitting another set, and then I don't remember. I think it might have been your show. Jeff Shaw was getting interviewed somewhere.
Yeah, it's right here.
Around the time of the release of his most recent Dry Bar special. Mm-hmm. I think he mentioned he's like, oh, when your last one becomes profitable, then you can do another one.
Yeah.
And I'm oh, okay. So I'm not quite there yet, but soon it will be. So
they send you an update, right? Like they send you like a monthly update or quarterly update or something like that.
Quarterly. I usually don't look at it because it was when you get the first couple and then you see how much it costs to make a special versus how much the special made, it just made me feel sad. So I wouldn't look. And then I checked a recent one. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing actually pretty good.
So everybody go watch Glen's special some more so that he can pay it off.
And then I'll do another one. But I was like, oh, I was having kind of the same problem because I was doing it as things were opening up after the pandemic. It's like, oh yeah, I'll record a 20-minute set and send it to him. And then I was really not to your level, but like overthinking what jokes do I want to do? What's clean enough? What do I want to do on Dry Bar versus like save for something else?
Right.
And I had a pretty good tape of the 20 minutes because I didn't want it to be like completely cobbled together. I had one set that went really well, but the 20 minutes that I was going to do was kind of like mixed throughout.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I don't want to cut it up too much. I'll just wait and then do another show. But then I was mostly just doing like corporate stuff for pretty much the whole pandemic, which I'm all
I don't
happy.
think you would have to. I don't think you would have to resubmit though.
I mean, I would. I don't know. I don't. I haven't talked to them about it. It was just like, oh yeah, I would like to do another one. It was fun. I had a great.
I really want to do it. I mean, I'm gonna do it by the end. I'm gonna get my thing by the end of the year so that I can go do it. Like that's the goal for the end of the
year. I think your last episode, I think you said that you had like as a goal.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, I'm doing a bunch of different shows and stuff, and I'm getting together the tape and stuff. So I want to get it all together. I know that they're gonna have to look at. They're probably gonna look at it and go, "This is two different shows," or clearly this is two different. And like, yeah, that's. I mean, welcome to LA. That's how I got to do it now. They don't just give it to anybody. They're not just gonna go, "Yeah, you look good. Go ahead. You're on the street and you can tell a joke. Yeah, go for it." You know. So
I mean, I know it's changed from I submitted like the end of 2019 and it was like pretty quick where they're like, here's some dates, when can you come? But it was I sent them the hour video of my first album recording,
right,
which was all clean because I was doing it so colleges would book me. So I'm like, yeah, this whole thing would fit. And a lot of my dry bar special was stuff from that first album, and then it was like newer stuff that I was like, it's clean, so it's in. I don't know if it's done yet, but now there's a couple bits where they're, when I do them on stage, they're longer or like a better version of a bit that was on the dry bar special. So there was one in particular where I talk about my older daughter being in school and her teacher sending a note home, and then her other teacher telling me she needs to learn my wife's phone number. Which now that my younger daughter is also in school, like that bit's gotten longer because I compare how they are in school compared to one another, other things that have happened with my younger daughter, but then it still all kind of ties together the same way at the end. And when I do it on stage, it doesn't feel weird because even if people have seen the dry bar special, they're like, oh yeah, we've heard some of this, but like this is clearly much bigger. But then when I was working on the hour for the new special, I'm like, don't think I want to repeat it. Like I don't think I want to do anything that was on the dry bar special because that's now the thing most people have seen of me,
right.
except for one TikTok video I made about potty training my daughter, and another one where I introduced my pet rat. Those have more views than my dry bar special, but nothing else does. So I think I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I've done shows where people even it's happened on virtual shows sometimes where I will start a bit that I did on the dry bar special, and someone in the comments will be like, "Oh, I saw this bit on dry bar," and it's like, "Well, do you want me to do a different bit?" And they're like, "No, I like it." And it's like, "Oh, okay." Comics, I feel like we have this idea of if you've seen a joke before, you don't want to hear it again.
Right.
And I've in since kind of the dry bar special came out and I've been back out in the world doing shows, that's not really been my experience.
Yeah.
I did a show in Ashland, not Ashton, sorry, Ashland, Wisconsin, and a bunch of people there saw my dry bar special like the day of the show. They're like, I watched it again this morning, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm gonna do mostly new stuff because I'm recording a special soon. And then one lady is like, oh, I wish you did more like the jokes about your name from the dry bar special. I'm like, you can go watch them.
Watch it.
You already know them. It's on video. Like you can enjoy that anytime you want. Like how often am I going to get to the very north part of Wisconsin? Enjoy it in the moment, I guess. But she was like, no, I like those bits. It would have been nice to hear them.
Yeah. So. Isn't it weird because as comedians, we feel like we can't repeat stuff that people have already seen, but bands do that for their entire careers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I know Gaffigan and Regan do it. They will come out at the end of their shows and they will do whatever bits you want. What's that?
They'll take like requests at the end of the show. It's wild that they have to. They're right to do it that way, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
The people, they want to hear Hot Pockets, right? Yeah. And especially when you're at that level, they're paying a lot of money. They're like, tickets to see me are pretty affordable. If there's a joke like that you didn't get, I don't know. I don't feel that bad, but you want to give the people what they want. But there's also a line, I think, between doing a joke that you've done before and then just doing the same hour for 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a thing I've seen, like road comics that I've opened for over the years where it's like, yeah, so just pretty much word for word the same set that you did when I saw you in 2009. All right. I mean, that's a choice. I genuinely, I'm not saying a name to protect anybody. I do not remember this man's name, but it was around the time I was recording my album. He tried to talk me out of it. He's like, "Don't record an album, man. You burn that material. You can't ever do it again." And I'm like, "Okay. I mean, I'll write more jokes. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's true, but also if it is, fine. Like, I don't know. There was like a thing of, I think it was from the comedy boom in the 80s, just this idea of like, you get a tight 45 and you'll work forever. Like that's,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound appealing to me.
No.
You're just
Because
doing,
you also change. So your jokes have to change.
yeah. Like I have jokes about my older daughter being a baby. It feels weird because now she's 10. It's like, I could doing this joke. I could lie and say it's about my younger daughter now, but I don't know. I would rather be honest on stage, and I would rather, get to talk about whatever I want rather than feel like I got to stick to the script, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's the good part about comedy is like there are jokes that I did in my first year that I don't do anymore, but there are some jokes that I did in my first couple of years that I still have, but I've just slowly made them better over time. And I think that's what we have to do.
That one about my kid being in school has certainly evolved from dry bar to now, but because like the kernel of it is basically the same, I'm like, I don't want to repeat it on a special. I'll do it on stage all day, every day, until I get bored, and then I'll move on. But there's also like guys like Seinfeld. He doesn't do the same hour for 30 years, but he will do 30-year-old joke. And
Yep.
like when I saw him, I think it was 2015, 2014. We as the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival, he was headlining it, and I saw the show, and I'm like, he's doing bits from the show, from Seinfeld, the stand-up interstitials, and I'm like, that's a choice, man. I get, and I've heard him talk about it where he's like, I want to do my best hour, like I want to do the material that this audience will enjoy the most. And I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with you, but you're Jerry Seinfeld and it seems to be working for you. So yeah, go stick with that, man.
Yeah, I've seen Seinfeld a few times in Vegas, and he did pretty much similar sets. There were some new jokes that he worked in there, but they were basically the same sets material that I've seen and heard before. So I was like, okay, but I don't know. It's just like you're seeing Jerry Seinfeld, so it's like you're seeing the Rolling Stones, or you're seeing the Beatles, or you're seeing whatever, Led Zeppelin. Like, so it's that same feeling, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, like I got my mom in to see that show, and she was delighted. And she's not like a big Seinfeld fan or anything. She was just impressed that because I was doing the same festival as Jerry Seinfeld, that I got her a ticket just by asking somebody.
Yeah.
So
where's that festival at? The Lucille Ball Festival? Where's that at?
Ball Comedy Festival is in beautiful Jamestown, New York, her hometown, home of the National Comedy Center.
That's awesome.
Whatever year they broke ground on that was the year that I was there. I don't remember.
Okay. That's kind of cool. So tell everybody where they can come out and see you, so they can get prepared, so they can come see you and they can support you and help with the new album recording.
Yeah, Glen Tickle against the World Crime League is getting recorded on April 22nd at Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the place that I've performed comedy more than anywhere else in the world, except for maybe this shed. I might have beaten it just by doing virtual shows. They told me, I think it was before I recorded my first album there, they told me, they're like, oh, did you know that you've performed stand-up here more than any other stand-up in the world? They kept like a spreadsheet, and my friend who worked there was like, yeah, you've got it by like a mile because you're here all the time. I don't know if that's still true, but it was at least once. And I was like, all right, this is clearly why everyone thinks I live here.
Yeah, I mean, I still forget sometimes. I've had people be like, doesn't Glenn live in Pennsylvania? And I'm like, I remember him telling me no, but also at the same time, I feel like yes.
You're not alone. Everyone does it. I think I might have said it on here before, but I was supposed to call into a radio show in Rochester, New York once, and before I was supposed to call in, they tweeted and tagged me in it, and they're like, "Oh, calling in from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, it's Glen Tickle." And on Twitter, I replied, "I'm like, correct this. I live in New Jersey. If you don't fix it, I'm not calling in." As like a joke, like I wasn't really, but it was my friend's radio show, and then the radio intern like helping me like genuinely thought I was like furious and I wasn't gonna do it, and they were like panicking. I was like, no, it was a bit. I was still gonna call it. But also, I mean, it's wrong. I live there.
You should have got out and got angry. Like, who's out there tweeting that I live in Pennsylvania, New Jersey?
It is.
It's
remarkable how many people think that.
Yeah. Do you think I pump my own gas?
No,
that's literally the what?
I have people for that now.
Yeah. I think New Jersey is like the last state that has that, right? Isn't it like one of the last states that has it?
Oregon, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
I don't know if they've changed it, but it's great. It is. They've tried to like repeal it a couple of times, and then are like, absolutely not. No. It's also, it makes it more. Gas is cheaper in New Jersey than the surrounding states because we don't have to pay the insane insurance you have to pay when you let a bunch of randos use a pump that dispenses gasoline. Like, it is so easy to just misuse that thing and dump gas everywhere. You got to pay for when that goes bad. You need a professional. Other states.
That's smart. Actually, I never thought of that. Okay, that's a genius. That should be a thing.
Creates jobs. It stops me from having to get out of my car. Everybody wins, especially me.
All right. Well, thank you, Glenn, for being on the podcast. Don't forget, check it out. Glen Tickle versus the World Crime League. It's going to be at Steel Stacks. I'll put all the information in there. The podcast will come out before that day, so you guys will still be able to get tickets, still be able to go support them. If I was closer, I would go watch it for sure, but I don't live out that way, so it'd be a very expensive plane ticket for me because I'm sure Bethlehem, Pennsylvania is like, I'd have to fly to where would I have to fly to? I'd have to fly. What?
Lehigh Valley International. It's like a very quaint little airport.
I'm sure there's no LAX to Lehigh Valley. I'm sure I'd have to go like a bunch of weird ways to get there.
There's probably a layover in Newark that might involve a bus. I think 3 out of the last 4 times I've tried to fly out of Lehigh Valley International, they just put you on a bus and drive you to a better airport.
All right. Well, there you go. So go check it out. Go support Glenn. Glenn, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to see the special. I cannot wait. Yeah, it's always awesome to talk to you. Always awesome to just get to hear what you're up to. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Please like and subscribe. Let's get the YouTube to 1,000 guys. I'm seeing it every day. You guys are going up and doing it. But please, if you're watching this, go subscribe. Even if you don't ever watch any other videos, just go subscribe. I need your support, please. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.